Welcome, everyone. This is one more episode of Straightforward. I'm super excited here today to talk with Rosie Bailey, who's a co-founder and CEO of Nibble Technologies. It's a super exciting solution that Rosie will talk us through a little bit. But Rosie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
If you can introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit of what Nibble is about.
I think I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I think I'm an accidental AI entrepreneur. And we stumbled on building an AI chatbot about 2 years before ChatGPT was released. So here we are, sort of doing something trendy, but I think it was quite an evolution. So Nibble is the only chatbot in the world that can negotiate a deal with you, or we believe it's the only one. And it's a solution for anyone who needs to negotiate a price one-on-one with lots and lots and lots of people. And it was inspired when my co-founder was haggling over a pair of trainers in a physical market. And the experience was very positive. It's a very human-centric experience. Having a proper negotiation is very emotional. But at the same time, done right, it can make you happy, it can make the seller happy, and it can happen quite fast to get to a deal. And he was like, if this can happen in real life, how could we make this happen online? And that was the main genesis.
Really cool. And can I ask you a personal question? So I guess
Sure.
Nibble was founded in UK and has a footprint in Europe and in the US at this point, right? But it was born in the UK, right? Which I never thought of as a haggling culture. Certainly negotiating.
No. Well, actually, my co-founder is married to a Turkish woman,
Okay.
and they were actually, I will be honest, they were in Istanbul. But actually, interestingly enough, there are some segments where it still is true, but it's very specific. You negotiate over your job, your new pay, buying a car, buying a house. But I agree. Look, if I was an alien choosing a country to start a haggling business in, I don't think I would have started in London in the UK. But there we are. That's where my kids are at school, so that's where I am.
Really cool. So let's jump straight into the topic of the day here. So you guys been doing this for a long time now, and certainly you guys have a lot of lessons that we can learn from, right? So as you said, you guys founded and developed this tool, and being adding it to commerce experiences for many clients in Europe and North America. And you've been learning, and of course then ChatGPT happens, right? So and then there's a new generation of chats that are not algorithmic. And for this discussion here, just for the audience, we're going to call algorithm just the previous AI kind of on the unstructured database plus heuristic that we're going to call algorithmic here, just the opposite to Gen AI based chats, right? So how do you compare them both? Like what do you think that where the limitations, and like where is there any kind of scenarios where they're conducive to better to a more algorithm solution and then a more Gen AI based? What do you learn in this 3 to 4 years that you can teach?
So we started before LLMs. So our chatbot was following a pattern, following an algorithm, following a set of rules. And I have to be honest, I was surprised that the next wave of massive technology was solving more creative problems than it was solving more maths problems. And I think that's how you can think about a Gen AI chatbot versus an algorithmic chatbot. The Gen AI chatbot will probably be more creative or unpredictable, depending how you want to characterize it, right? Unpredictable if you're negative, creative if you're optimistic. And the other type of chatbot, an algorithmic chatbot, will be very predictable and also extremely explainable, right? Like, so if you sell this piece of technology into an enterprise, you can say, if X happens, it will answer with Y, whereas you can't do that with an LLM. You can say it probably will be Y, but you can't say it will definitely be Y. And I think that's the key difference, is predictability.
Got it. In a scenario where you guys were you guys applying that intelligence to trade, right? So you guys the Nibble is a haggling solution, right? Where people can negotiate, and so I guess that predictability in that scenario, it counts, right? It makes a difference because you don't want unpredictability and then how much discount the chat is giving your products, right, I guess.
Yes, because we sell a solution to an enterprise and they say, I'm happy to haggle, but I'm not going to go below $100 on this item. And we can't have any chance that that item goes below $100. It can't be a probabilistic solution. It needs to be an absolute. But it goes deeper than that, because once you're negotiating in natural language, it could say, I won't offer you anything less than $100, but I'll give you a free add-on, a free box, or free speedy shipping. And obviously that is a value item. And so although it's only described in words, it's a piece of value. So you can't have the words unpredictably give away the value. And so it goes a bit deeper than, can I control the numbers? It's actually, can I control what the chatbot is deciding, if that makes sense. And with LLM technology, you can influence decisions, and you can have highly likely decisions, but you can't have decisions, because it is still a if you like, a probabilistic approach to the problem.
But is there a way that we can kind of intertwine the experiences, like, because the Gen AI based chats, they're really good, kind of creating empathy. Well, not even mention the 4.0s there is version, right? Which is kind of another level.
Step, isn't it? It's another step. Yeah. And I think what we've found, we've done a lot of work on actually previous versions, because 4 came out 2 days ago. And what we found is if you give it too many instructions, or you ask it to take multiple steps, the probability of it getting it right goes down. And that for us was the biggest problem, as in, it looked great for the first round of a negotiation. It looked pretty good for the second, but the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh was where it was getting tricky. However, we work with a professor of negotiation from London Business School. And one of the things we put into the chat is if you like, the emotive component of a negotiation. The idea of active listening, the idea of using language that your customer will really relate to, the idea of effectively responding empathetically. And that is something that LLMs are brilliant at. So what we've tried to do in the latest round of our technology, and we call it a hybrid atomic approach, we cut that chat down into very, very small atoms. And then we have atoms that are purely designed to generate an empathetic or emotional connection. And we have atoms that are delivering information or decisions. And the atoms that deliver information or decisions are fixed copy, but we have lots of variants so that we can be professional or jovial or commanding or conciliatory. And then alongside that, we have the atoms that deliver the emotional connection, and they come from an LLM. And because they're very, very small, although there is still a very small probability they could go wrong, because we're only asking for a very, very small, very specific thing from the LLM, like somebody might say, it's a gift for my mother-in-law's birthday, but I'm on a budget. And so the atom that the LLM is given is something about the mother-in-law's birthday, and it's allowed to generate a response to that. So the response will then be, hey, happy birthday to your mother-in-law. Shall we talk about getting you 10% off? That second piece will be fixed copy. So that approach is how we're sort of twining it together. And it's a step-by-step approach where you take what you're given, break it down into atoms, respond atomically, and then stitch it all back together so it feels fluent.
Got it. So I can say, like, the coordination layer is still as an algorithm, like the pieces that are actually breaking down those atoms and coordinating the whole thing is still an algorithm, heuristic based chat, but you're kind of activating pieces of a Gen AI based functionality in that experience, right?
And I have to be honest, and I've only seen snippets of all the OpenAI videos that came out, but the emotional connection that we're now getting out of these models is the big step forward. And that's the piece that it is exciting to use. I think it raises lots and lots of ethical questions. But I think as long as you're transparent about how you use it, unfortunately, we've been manipulated by the technology in our pocket for the last 15 years. This is not going to change anything. It's just going to accelerate it. But it just means you need to be aware. You need to be savvy about, what you're exposed to, like you would in any human-to-human interaction anyway.
Yeah, no, but I think it's very refreshing, right? Because quite frankly, if you look at the history of the last 5 years and the kind of the rise of chatbots, right? So unfortunately, the most chatbot experiences are disappointing, right? So they're frustrating because they're very shallow, very superficial. It's like it's got very frustrating, usually very frustrating, right? So if you can kind of walk us through, like, what are the little kind of what are the pillars, the ingredients to get a chatbot that's actually meaningful, like for example, you guys are the way you're describing the strategy behind Nibble and the commerce experience you guys supporting. It's got their layers of of intelligence there, kind of the go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers of conversation, which differs a lot from what we see in the market. It's like, okay, the second question you ask, okay, call an agent, right? Like I can't answer.
Yeah, no. Let me talk to a human, like smashing the keyboard, right?
Very superficial. So how you actually get to feed the model? Like, can you kind of walk us through what the pillars are to actually get a chatbot that actually can sustain conversation that actually gets something done, actually?
I think, honestly, I think chatbots over the last 10 years of evolution have scored a massive own goal in that the majority of chat solutions, even if you think about it, an Alexa or that little button at the bottom of most websites that says, do you need any help? They've designed something that's really general. The majority of people need for something specific. So on an e-commerce website, it's something like 60% of the inquiries is, where is my delivery? And on Alexa, the majority of them are asking to play music, or in the case of my kids, asking it to make rude noises, like it's really embarrassing. And but there's too many people are trying to create these like all-encompassing solutions. And so the first way we tackled it was by narrowing down the problem we're trying to solve and making sure that we only fire the Nibble chatbot when people are looking to solve that problem. So our chatbot is only fired up when you've made a decision about what you want to buy, but you're hesitating because it looks a bit expensive. And at that point, you have a chance to talk to Nibble. But you don't talk to Nibble when you're still choosing between the red and the green and the pink, because you need a different kind of help at that stage. You need something much closer to customer service. So it's a very non-tech solution. But my first and most important solution to having a really good experience is saying, let's narrow the problem set as much as we possibly can. And what you could do is you could just have two different buttons. It's like, do you want to chat to someone about your delivery, or do you have a different inquiry? And then you can and by the time they're talking to that chatbot, they're expecting an answer. And actually for specific inquiries where you don't need to work out the scale of the possible, who should I vote for in the next election and all sorts of stupid questions. So that was the first thing we did, which is not terribly technical, but really important in the technical design. And then I'd say the second and the other really important thing we did up front is we decided as infrequently as possible to say, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Because there really is no point. Because although I'm talking about empathetic experiences, it's a chatbot and you don't care whether it understands or not. It really doesn't matter. You might care if it's a human because you don't want to confuse them and you don't want to upset them. But with a chatbot, you absolutely don't care. So that information is totally irrelevant to you. So if you can, when you don't understand, you should ask a question to help get the conversation back on track. So in our case, we don't say, oh, I don't understand. We say something along the lines of, let's see where we are here. I'm making you an offer of 80. Do you want to make a counter offer? What number do you want to counter offer? And so then we're demanding a number. And actually on a smartphone, we can bring up a number pad. And at that stage, you're just avoiding having that annoying conversation of, I don't care that you don't understand. I said it 6 times already, So you do sometimes have to resort to, I don't understand, please rephrase. But actually, often you can ask a question which requires a very direct response, which means you don't need to take the conversation so far off track. And that to me is the most important thing. So narrow use case and don't say, I don't understand if you don't have to.
That which I'm hearing you right here. Like I understand like so if you take like a complex customer journey, right? So you might have to have like a very different and kind of a coordinating different chat experiences in different pieces of the journey, like kind of specialized chats for each person. So for example, if buying like this, maybe a chat that can help people, suggest outfits, and it's kind of a completely different type of specialization and data sets to train and etc. Then when you move to a negotiation phase, it's a completely different chat. And so kind of a coordination of different chat experiences that each one specialize in one kind of a very kind of a special, a narrow problem set, as you described it.
Which helps you find things that resolve your problems. Do you see what I mean? Because it seems to me, and I'm by no means an expert in search, but it seems to me that things like search have changed a lot. Now people expect to be able to search rich media like photos and videos as much as text. So the even concept of search, so the idea that your standard search might be suitable for you may not be right. And so you may have a specialist search provider helping you recategorize your fashion portfolio for the latest fashion trends. So nobody's searching blue jeans, they're searching cowboy outfit or whatever. And so from that point of view, you don't want to have an embedded chat that just searches on text. You want to be able to, if you like, triage that inquiry to the right technical expertise. So I think as much as possible, it's about firing up that inquiry when you're relatively confident what the person will need, so that they can quickly go to what they need, and then there's a sort of exit strategy of talk to a human if they need to.
Cool. So what do you think the future of this combination of Gen AI? Gen AI historically hasn't been good in doing math. I guess it's not coincidentally the demo of 4.0 is kind of try to kind of bridge that gap and try to tackle that problem.
It did. In fact, actually, we're tackling that because at Nibble we have somebody might write, I don't want to pay more than 100, but could you get me a 20% discount if I buy 3 at the same time? And you've got 3 numbers in that sentence. You've got 100, 20%, and 3. 20% discount requires some maths to work out what the dollar discount is. And actually getting the model to recognize the different entities and then perform the maths and to know to go and get a calculator instead of using an LLM to solve the maths is part of the challenge. But I think technically we're pretty close to that now. But I think the thing I'm worried about in the future is that it'll become so reliable to use an LLM. It'll get the answer so many times correctly that you will forget that sometimes it's incorrect. And I think this is something when we talk to our much bigger customers who have now established things like AI boards, they're starting to ask us the question about how do we know when we've potentially got it wrong? And in many circumstances, it doesn't matter. And I think you can be clear. You can say, right, move fast and break things was all about, well, we'll put it out there. And if it's a little bit wrong, our users will tell us. And so that's fine. But there are some situations, where accounting software, let's say, where that's not good enough, right?
Yeah, but that's a risk reward equation that each business will have to evaluate by themselves. But because the people on customer service, if you have, for example, customer service people supporting and negotiating with people, they can make mistakes as well today. Right?
Exactly.
So, as long as those experiences are making equal or less mistakes, then you should be fine.
And I think where you're using LLMs as a co-pilot, then it's fine, isn't it? Because at that stage, you're sort of saying you're trying to minimize the fallibility of a person. And if you look at some of the demos, which are getting increasingly Flash and increasingly Apple-like, you can actually see when they're prompting the LLM, they're covering up for its uncertainty. And that's what you naturally do as a human, right? You try and get the best possible outcome and you treat it like a colleague that helps you do a better job. I think if you're developing a piece of software that you're going to sell into enterprises, which is what we're doing, it is a slightly more tricky problem to solve, to sort of effectively define the uncertainty that you're playing with.
So it's fair to say that you see that kind of the experiences going to the future will still be a combination of, use of Gen AI and algorithm in some kind of a more heuristic algorithm experiences being kind of coordinated together.
I think so. I think that will make sense. Also from a cost basis, it makes sense, Like if the answer is obvious, why don't we just use the obvious answer instead of churning some sort of, massive cogs in a massive virtual machine? I mean, it doesn't make sense. If we've been asked this question 10 times before and the answer is always X, let's just use the answer X. So you don't need to use LLMs for everything. Sometimes it's just not the right tool for the job.
Really cool. Rosie, I think I'm out of questions here. It was a great masterclass for us, how to get chats right. I think a very needed masterclass. Yeah. We see so many frustrating experiences in the past. And you guys are doing such an amazing job at Nibble. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. If there was one thing I'd finish on, just to recommend, we have a fantastic copywriter, and there is so much you can achieve by just finessing the copy. It's a real art. Anyway, so if anyone's out there is devising their own chatbot, really focus on the use of language, because it makes such a difference to how it flows.
Really, really cool. Appreciate your generosity and your insight and sage.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for watching. Thank you. Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.